Sit back, relax. Try to maintain your composure. You are about to become connected.
Okay, welcome to the 6th edition of the Connect podcast. Edition? It is an edition. It's fucking very lovely edition. Anyway, welcome to the... Nice start. Welcome to the...
the Connect podcast number 6.
Yeah, there we go. Got it done.
And today we're going to be talking about a few different issues that we think are big topics to talk about, and they include the money system, which is a big monster.
Absolutely.
Talking about that, and then we're going to talk about a few documentaries that bring up some interesting topics. So these documentaries are Zeitgeist, the Zeitgeist movies, and also the Zeitgeist movement. And don't get the two confused because Peter Joseph will smash your face.
And the steel pole.
And also Owned and Operated, which is another interesting documentary. And just a few things that we might talk about. We'll talk about like human nature and things that are inherent to us and why we've sort of come about with this system and why we are the way we are, why we've ended up in this particular spot, and whether or not we need to continue this way of living, and whether or not that's best for us as humans and what we want for our future. There's plenty of other things I'm sure I'm going to go.
Well, apart from I mentioned documentaries such as Owned and Operated and Zeitgeist, but plenty of others. There's another one called Thrive, which touches on similar sort of topics. There's many Occupy Wall Street ones. It's all about the people trying to decipher, describe, break down the current system, distribution system, operating system of the planet, which is the economic system, which we know, break it down in layman's terms so that people have more of a general understanding of the way that the planet is operated by the big corporations and the big governments around the world. The way people are told in which it is a benefit to live their life, and whether that benefit is actually a benefit for them, for the planet, and pretty much,
So they open people's eyes into what is actually taking place when humans have made these decisions to live on this planet and how going about it. And I think most people don't really fully connect with the whole process of what it takes for them to have their life the way it is, and we don't really understand the bigger picture of how the whole system works. And I think these documentaries bring to light the bigger picture, and that bigger picture is very shocking to many people, and something that I don't think that we would be choosing as individuals if we could come up with a system now. Just if I asked you how do you think we should live, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't come up with this one here.
Well, no, I think it's an accumulation of you get terms like such as what's happening in the news at the moment. You got this fiscal cliff coming up, and you got all these explanations of why we've had all these global recessions and all this sort of stuff. When it is a big complex web, which the economic system, which people who control, and I won't say the economic system itself. People go, it's free markets, but I don't believe in the term free markets. I think everything is controlled to as much extent as what people at the top of the pyramid can profit out of it. So even in a global recession, people are still profiteering majorly from a global recession. Now, they might take a hit to start with, but eventually, all these measures and all these regulations kick in, and the people at the top make more money. So, good, bad, win-loss, it's always the people at the bottom of the pyramid who have to pick up the scraps and really pay the bills when people at the top decide to either, overexert their potential or take risks from trying to make more money, essentially.
But of course, devil's advocate would just say, every human being, given that you've got your life essentials taken care of and you've got shelter and food and water and everything, you're healthy, every person born into this system has an opportunity to be a person at the top and have money or whatever it is they're striving for. So isn't that fair? And that's, I think, that's an interesting question because...
Well, I mean, you're talking about people at the top having those essentials, but from the way I see it, the people at the top, if we're talking to people who are earning what, let's say what's at the top? Well, someone earning $1 million a year. Like that's a lot of cash. If you're earning $1 million a year US dollars, then you're probably doing quite well. So, but anyone earning over that, so what are your luxury essentials? So you got your lovely house, you got your couch, you got your pool, you got this and that. You got a lovely area to live. Families going to good schools, all the rest of it. You're taking care of all the essentials plus the added extras on top. You got your nice car and this and that. Anything more than that might be, but a lot of people see that as a sickness,
a luxury.
No, a lot of people say, well, now you're just hoarding money. You're literally just putting money in a bank. You're gathering major wealth. You've got like hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and you're just hoarding it. So a lot of people see that as a sickness. So I go,
so you're talking about not so much people trying to accumulate money so they can spend it on things to enjoy in life. You're talking about people who collect money simply for the joy of collecting money. Now that's something I think is different. And
it's a hobby too.
It's a game.
Isn't it a hobby?
It's a game. They're good at it and they're doing well at it. And for them to gauge their success, is by accumulating money. That's how they gauge it. So for them, that's it. But the problem is that they don't. Maybe they don't realize. Maybe they do. The problem is that as they accumulate money, they are contributing to poverty on the other side of the world.
Exactly.
So it's for them.
But it's sort of to gain wealth, forget all about self. And that's a capitalist motto. You know what I mean?
So, but the other issue there is then, of course, so that's, fair enough if you find pleasure in being successful at accumulating money. I can understand that. If people are very good at that and that's what their skills are, and, if they choose to get their meaning of life out of that, all right. But I think we have a problem with the culture of today's world, which tells people that meaning of life is in consumerism. It gives people a false sense of what makes them happy. Most of the time, I'm sure that I'm not trying to say that having possessions isn't pleasurable, and of course, it's awesome, having certain things. But I think people these days are putting so much emphasis on getting their pleasure out of that, and that's what's driving this whole system and this machine is people striving for more and more because they believe it's what makes them happy.
That's right, and it is, and like I was saying before, it does come down to that situation where you sometimes have to ask, especially throughout this American dream era when you had this massive middle class and the biggest democracy in the world in America, and that's just faded now. But this massive middle class, and where you got this concept of the American dream, it's when all these all the middle class was getting paid a comparative amount compared to the CEO of the company. And then sort of towards the end of the 1970s, towards the teens, towards the 2000s, that just suddenly got blown out. That suddenly got taken away from them.
So you mean that they don't earn as much?
No, they didn't earn as much. So what was happening is the CEOs would there's a strategy that developed in businesses where CEOs were getting massive bonuses, and because businesses were making more money, CEOs were going, well, I deserve this bonus because look at me, I'm a genius and I'm making all this money for the business. But essentially what happened was the CEOs were just not increasing wages at the regimented level of what it used to be from the 1940s to the 1970s.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah. So they just weren't increasing wages. So the CEOs were just getting paid massive amounts and then just putting the rest in the stock market for the shareholders.
Well, because if you think about the way it should work, is that if a business is making more money, everyone who's a part of that business should get a percentage more of the profit.
Well, people will say you're a fucking socialist. You know what I mean? You're socialist, you're communist. Don't speak like that. That's not the way the capitalism.
It's not a communist idea.
Yeah, well, it's similar.
It's just saying that if everyone's putting in an effort into a project and the project gets successful, everyone gets a share back in terms of how successful it is.
Absolutely. Look, I like to think like that as well. But anyway, let me just finish what I was on before. So then towards the 1970s, from when this phenomenon started happening, to the 2000s, CEOs were getting big bonuses and people getting paid less. So then the American public, what they had to do is they had to start getting more credit. So because they needed to pay their bills, they had a certain luxury of life. and they wanted to maintain it, so then they just kept getting more credit. And then what happened towards 2005 or 2007 was, I think, we had the global financial crisis, and that was from accumulation. In layman's terms, there was obviously a lot of other things going on, but in layman's terms, what accumulated to the global financial crisis was that the last global GFC was that the American average household was not getting paid anywhere near as much as what they should have to be able to live a middle income life. They had to start getting more credit over the span of about 30 or 40 years because CEOs decided to stop paying them as much. Americans per capita work more man hours than any other country on the planet. Okay, so that is capitalism at its absolute finest.
Yeah.
You know, that is, you get paid less, the people at the top get paid more, but the people at the top get the tax cuts and they get their benefits because they're the job creators. So it's this cycle which is always going to crash eventually. It will just continually crash, and it's proven that. Either we've had 2 crashes in nearly a lifetime, or 1.5 lifetimes we've had 2 major crashes, and that, you know, you keep hearing these terms such as fiscal cliff and, like, you know, the spending cuts and tax hikes are going to come in soon, and, you know, they're trying to vote on it and this and that.
But whatever.
When really what's happening is the people who are in control of the game. You know, you might think it's Obama, you might think it's whoever. People who are in control of the game are just basically, in a roundabout way, warning the public of either austerity measures or warning the public that they're just trying to weasel a little bit more out of the system just to make sure that the people on top stay on top and the people at the bottom stay on the bottom. And now I know that's some form of, you know, fucked up way to look at it, but unfortunately the reality of the world we live in and the reality of the economic system, that's actually how the world works.
But it's just so crazy, this whole economic thing that we stress about. It's always on the news, talking about the economy, this and that, like analysing it, trying to figure it out, trying to predict it. Like, what the fuck? I don't get why does that have to relate so closely with our way of life and the prosperity we might have in our life? Like, we still have to go out and toil the fields to get food. We still have to.
Well, it's sort of
do
like the world's in $40 trillion debt. Well, who the fuck are we in debt to? Like,
yeah,
why are we in debt? Why is the world in $40 trillion debt to someone? It just makes no sense. The concept of interest on loans and debt. No money is in circulation without it being debted to someone. So it's constant. So if everyone pays back all the money they owe now, there would still be debt. Then you can't pay it back anymore because no one's got any more money. It's this concept of, you know, the poor need money, so then they get loans from the bank and they pay interest on those loans, which then goes to the rich. Because the rich have money in the bank.
Yeah. What I find weird is that
it's a really simple concept if you actually understand it a little bit, and you can talk about it in these silly, stupid terms. And everyone might go, "Oh, well, I know that happens," but you have to go, "Well, is that right? Is that the best way to do things?"
Zeitgeist explained money in the way it worked in a really, like, shocking and interesting way. And I don't know much about economics, but it sounds to me like the money system is inherently flawed.
It's incredibly flawed. Yeah,
no one wins. You can't win ever, and we're always going to be impending doom at the end of it, or someone always has to lose.
Without a doubt, someone always does have to lose. And I mean, if that's why I think, you know, Zeitgeist I really took a lot out of Zeitgeist, and it really connected all the dots because I mean, I was asking these questions fucking about 6 years ago. I remember, you know, we used to get fucked up and you always end up with a political discussion somewhere along the line. And before I even read up, or didn't even watch the news, I didn't even read up on world topics, I used to come to the conclusion, you know, when you started talking about, like, you know, famine in the world and this and that, and then you're like, you know, and I didn't even know much about technology. I was like, well, you know, if we've got the technology to be able to feed, clothe and house everyone in the world, you know, with free clean energy, so on and so forth, we do everything sustainably, which we do have the option to do, and we can feed and clothe everyone in the world with medical care, and that's just a basic human right. Then why don't we do it? And that was a massive question that I had to ask myself, and I was like, well, why wouldn't we do that? Like, you know, it makes no sense to me why we would allow people to suffer.
Well, I think one of the main...
don't need to.
I think that's the biggest question, really, isn't it, that we'll ever talk about, is that if we have the ability to feed, clothe and house everybody in the world. Why don't we? And I think that one of the main things that people would say against that is that people need to fight for their right to live on the planet, in that they need to prove that they have a right to be here by working hard, by